Rev up your engines!
Well, I didn't expect this. There was a woman who took her Mach-E Mustang, right? The electric Mustang, not really a Mustang, it's an SUV, and it's made in Mexico, to the dealer, and then they said, well, you got these problems, we can't fix it. We don't know how to fix it. It's bad enough they're made in Mexico. But, you know, you take your car to the dealer, they say they can't fix it because they're electronic with all this insane software built in. And, of course, they're not going to know how to fix it because they just started getting these cars. They just started working on these cars. And they're so high-tech. There's so much electronics that can go wrong in those things. Of course, they're not going to be able to fix a bunch of them. That's the thing that I see over the years with regular internal combustion engines. You don't even have to go as far as electronic cars. They put all the software and sensors and computers and modules into gasoline or diesel cars, right? Then when they have a problem, they don't know what to do because it's a new vehicle. Something's wrong with the software. They don't know what's wrong with the software. And even they can't fix it. Or the more hilarious thing, I've seen numerous Chrysler products. The transmissions won't shift, right? And they'll say, oh, we just need to reprogram your transmission. Then they reprogram and it doesn't work much better at all anyway. I mean, they just came out with an Mach-E and already, well, sorry, we can't fix it. Of course they're not going to be able to fix it. Most of their mechanics never worked on electric cars anymore. Now all of a sudden they got to be electric car experts. To become an expert in fixing things takes years, if not decades. I wasn't a really good mechanic till I was in my 30s, and I started when I was 14. It takes a long time to really build it up and understand what's happening. And of course, with today's technology getting faster and faster and faster, what do they say? Every 2 years or something, it doubles the complexity. Hey, you're not going to have guys that can fix the stupid things. They can sell them, and then if they can't fix them, what good are they? Dad, 2 powered says my wife is a 2000 Grand Cherokee, 145,000 miles. Now they said we want to flush, and it was less than 2 years ago. She said, didn't you put new coolant when you replaced the radiator? I said, yeah, but we just replaced it. We didn't flush the system out. It sounds fishy. 2 years ago, they replaced the radiator. You still had probably about 1/3 or so of the coolant left in the engine. The rest was new. Modern coolant lasts a long time. It's not like the old stuff. I'm sure it's perfectly fine. I wouldn't worry about it. Now, guys like me who are honest, we can test your coolant. We have coolant test strips and tests we can do to tell you if it's still good. I'm sure it's probably perfectly good. But really, if they say stuff like that, if they change the radiator out, they had it all taken out. They should have just flushed the rest of it out, the little bit that was in there. They were just basically lazy. And now they're trying to rip you off. And I'm sure they want a whole bunch of money to change it. Do it yourself. Not rocket science changing the coolant, but since they changed most of it anyways, I wouldn't even worry about it. Not modern cars. The coolant lasts so long, and most of your coolant, 2/3 of it is brand new anyways. What breaks down in them in the additives. So you had all the new stuff with additives. I'm sure it's not breaking down. You get it tested with test strips. Have them tested. I'm sure it's perfectly good. Get it tested. You find out it is. You realize you don't have to. They're always trying to sell you stuff at the dealer. Joy B says, I have squeaky brakes after my car was maintained at the dealer. 2008 Ford Escape, 139,000 miles. I had it serviced at the dealer. They said the braking drums are good, but now my brakes are squeaking if I stop fast. If they didn't touch your brakes, and it's doing it now, and it didn't do it before, that's just weird. I would take the wheels off, look at the pads, make sure they're thick. I've had people go to the dealer and say, oh yeah, you know, we did all this, and they did nothing but change the oil and just BS. I've even had people, they said, well, we took it to them, here's what they said they did, and I look at it and said, no, they didn't. They took it back, and the dealer lied and said, oh no, we did that, and it was obviously didn't, so I don't know. I have no idea. Pull your wheels off, check them. Now, if the brake pads are still thick, I wouldn't worry about it. The only thing that I could think, let's say they did clean the brakes off with like brake cleaner. If there was dust and gook on it, and now it's all perfectly clean, the rotors will be all shiny and the pads are clean. Sometimes they'll squeak then because it was the old dust and goo that was kind of settled in so it didn't make any noise as a buffer. Now that they're shiny clean, and it could be the brake pads just, they will squeak a little bit if they're perfectly clean. If you change the rotors, the noise would go away, but if it stops straight and doesn't shake, it's kind of a waste of money. It's an expensive thing. If the noise does bother you and it doesn't shake when you brake, you could just go and put new quality brake pads. I found if you buy Akabono brake pads, you don't even have to change the rotors. If they're not warped, doesn't shake when you stop fast, you can put the Akabono and they won't squeal. They're so well made, even on old worn rotors, they won't squeal. Time Traveler says, my car vibrates under a load at highway speeds only. When I'm driving 100 kilometers an hour or more and I put load on the engine, the car shakes and vibrates. When I don't have a load, there's no vibration. Here is the thing. Let's hope you got a bent drive shaft. You got a Ford Fiesta that's got front wheel drive. If the drive shaft, one of the two, is either bent or the CV joints are worn, when you accelerate, it'll shake and start doing that. It'll start vibrating. Pray it's that. Because if it isn't, it means your transmission's going out. You under a load, accelerating at higher speeds. If your transmission's going out, as it starts to accelerate, it starts vibrating internally. Pray it's the drive shafts. I did one the other day and it was. The guy had a bad CV joint in the inside. The grease had leaked out. You could see it. Put a new drive shaft and the vibration went away. Pray it's that and not the transmission itself going out. But it is a Ford Fiesta and they do have very weak automatic transmissions. Swam says, I got a 2008 Honda Civic. It loses coolant but doesn't have any leaks. I'm losing it slow every day. I did a pressure test and there was nothing leaking. I think the heater core's clogged up and the car smells like mold. Now heater cores can leak and they will just seep and you'll lose coolant. But it's got to go somewhere. And if the heater core's leaking, that's inside the dash. And the heater core is next to the evaporator. If it is leaking, it will go through the evaporator core, and it's got that drain hose, so it drains all the condensation when you run the AC, and it'll go under the car. If you're losing coolant there under that AC evap drain hose, yeah, it's the heater core that's leaking. That's a royal pain to change. If you want to test that, what you could do is take the two heater core hoses off, splice them together with a splice kit. You can buy one of those plastic splice kits at AutoZone for $5. Splice it together. If you stop losing coolant, you know it's the heater core, and then you can either fix it to cost a fortune or leave your bypass on it and it won't leak anymore. But if that doesn't fix it, you don't see it leaking anywhere. There's only two things it could be. One would be your radiator cap is losing pressure and it will evaporate. You won't see it because it'll evaporate. The other, of course, is if you're getting a blowing head gasket, and it very well could be because the car's an '08, it's 14 years old. It could be your head gasket's leaking. If that's the case, do my video, how to tell if your head gasket's blown, Scotty, and then you can test it to see if the head gasket's blown. Then you decide, do you want to try sealer, or you want to fix it, or you want to get another car? Aaron Garrett Company says, are electric cars better than ICE cars? Of course, meaning internal combustion engines. Well, they're better for the planet, supposedly, but then lithium is filthy, pollutes everything, and a lot of the electricity is generated from coal or gas, so that pollutes the air too. But in terms of actually driving and convenience, the internal combustion engines, they stand. There's an infrastructure for them. You don't have to wait an hour to 3 hours to fill your car up and recharge with electricity. So as it stands today, and nobody knows how to fix them either. So internal combustion engines are still much better for the average human being that drives long distances. I mean, if you're yuppie and you live in San Francisco and you charge it up and you drive 10 miles a day, buy whatever you want, you know. But normal Americans want to take vacations in their cars, travel all over the country. No, the electric cars are still a long way before they're going to be mainstream and accepted by average people. Joel says, how do you remove a stuck spark plug? Very good question. Because unfortunately, when a spark plug's in, the thread's inside the engine, and you can't really get to the thread inside the engine. What you'd want to do is, first, just spray the outside with WD-40 so it goes down. At least there's some hope of creeping in. Let it sit for a day. Get yourself the perfect socket that fits and a long extension bar to put on the socket. Gradually try to pull it. The smoother you pull it, the better. And if it's really stuck, get a friend and you hold the front of that bar, right? And then get a long piece of pipe that fits over the bar. Have him at the other end and pull at the other end. So he's pulling and getting a lot of torque, but he doesn't have to move it that harshly, so then it might pop and come out. That's your best chance. Now, if it breaks, well, there's a lot of kits out there for removing broken spark plugs, but they cost, the good ones are over $200. They do work, but they're very expensive, so try that first. John Fowler says, Scotty, transmission cooler lines that leak. Should I go OEM or rubber hose conversion? All right, I'd say if it's a GM product, do the conversion. The ones they make are crap, and the conversion kits are better. You know, it all depends on the vehicle you're working on. If you got a car that has problems, and the original ones, hey, go aftermarket and convert it. The aftermarket stuff's often better than the original. I know a guy who designed aftermarket stuff, and I said, hey, look, you designed that pretty good. He says, Scotty, what do you think? He says, this thing's already been designed. The second time you redesign something, you're going to do a better job. And interestingly enough, This guy originally worked for the company that designed the original one. Then he got a job at another company where he would redesign them, and of course the redesigns would be better. They'd see what the flaws and make them better. Josh Martino says, I got an 09 Honda Accord. When I park and take my foot off the brake, the car rolls back 2 feet. Why is this? Your parking prowl is starting to break. When you put it in park, there's a little prowl that's like a little hook, and it latches inside the transmission on a flywheel so it doesn't move anymore. Yours is starting to go out. So here's what you really should do. Say you're on a hill. You stop your car. You got your foot on the brake. Here's what you want to do. Keep your foot on the brake. Pull the emergency brake super tight, then put it in park, and you'll find it probably won't roll. That's better for your transmission, anywhere. You don't want to wear that prowl out. Instead of having all the strain on the prowl, you use the emergency brakes that are made to hold it in place anyways. Then put it in park and shut it off. That's the way to prevent problems. You already have a problem, and it'll keep it from getting worse, and it won't roll because you'll have the emergency brake on. I'm assuming your emergency brake works, but it's a Honda Accord, and they got pretty good emergency brakes. I'm guessing it still works good. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.